Hello and welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door, and today I'm talking about tarot for transformation. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. Thanks so much for those of you who were able to attend my virtual tarot card creation event recently. If you signed up but were unable to make it to the live event, you should have all the goodies in your email, which includes the replay of the event recording, the PDF I made with my step-by-step process, and an offer to join my upcoming series called Tarot for Transformation. So check your emails for that. If you weren't able to attend live or didn't register in time, you can go ahead and get the full hour-long recording with my step-by-step method, examples of tarot cards I created, journaling questions, and a PDF to walk you all through it for just $33. You can click in the show notes to purchase now. The link will be there. And as this episode is called, I'm going to be offering a 12-week Tarot for Transformation live course this summer. So yeah, I will have the link in the show notes for that if you want to indicate your interest in receiving more information. This does not commit you to anything. I'll just be sending out info to folks that are potentially interested. So we'll be working together for 12 weeks of calls and journaling to discover what happens when we want to transform our lives through the tarot. I will be utilizing Dreya Blume's book, Tarot for Transformation, using the major arcana to discover your best self and create a life worth living. Former name known as Andy Matzner, now known as Dreya Blume. And I'm really excited to get to do this work together. I've worked with them before. They and Rebecca Bloom, who created the Therapist Who Tarot deck that I use sometimes. They held a Therapist Who Tarot retreat last May in 2024 that I attended, and I have just loved their work since then, and I really want to work through this book, and I thought it would be really fun to create a program where we all work through part of the book together. So I will be doing 12 weeks of calls. Obviously there's 22 major arcana cards, so we'll probably just be doing, about half of the cards in there, and we'll kind of see how that goes. But yeah, we'll be talking about a major arcana card each week, and like I said, we'll have live calls, 1-hour calls each week. They will be recorded if you're unable to make it live. We'll talk about which card we are embodying that week. There'll be some journal prompts. We'll maybe pull some cards live, and we can have kind of like Q&A or at the end of each workshop together while we kind of help each other out and peer-to-peer answer questions or sort of explore maybe things we find challenging about that card or the archetype or don't quite understand. And also just sharing, how this has impacted our life each week. So I'm really excited for that. Like I said, the link will be in the show notes to indicate your interest to receive more info. It does not commit you to anything right now, but it'll just put you on my list where I'll start sending out the info. We're probably going to start at the end of August. So there's still some time to figure out if this is something you want to commit to, and I'll get kind of more information, the dates out there, and when the live calls will be. But I'm also open to, figuring some of that out together, as I want to make this, it'd be very fun if people can attend mostly live. And so I'm hoping for that as well. All right. And that is, a little bit about what I'm talking about today. So sort of dipping into the idea of using tarot for transformation. So we'll get into that in the episode. So if you do love the show, the best way to support it for free is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. I did just update my Patreon benefits to be bigger and better than ever. So every month I'm going to be hosting a new moon collective tarot readings live across different platforms on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube as well. And so I'll be doing that for everyone, so anyone can join into that or watch it after it's gone live. If you join the lovers level of the podcast on the Patreon, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord to chat with me live during the stream, so we can kind of, you can ask questions while I'm going through it if you have anything, or you want to know more about what the new moon is about. And I'll be pulling a card for each one of my patrons in addition to the new moon collective spread. So if you want an individual card pulled for you once a month live on the podcast, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family at the lovers level. And if you'd like to support the podcast even further, you can get a one-time individual 5-card reading in addition to all the other benefits if you join the Witch Bitch level on the Patreon. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, check out my Let's Talk Tarot meetup group for the latest event postings. The next 2 events I'll be doing are I'm doing a full moon women's circle local event on July 10th at 7 p.m. So the link to sign up for that is in the show notes as well, or on my website. I'm running that through Eventbrite, so I'll have that link below, and it will be a local event in the evening at Thresholds Collective in South Tacoma. Very excited to do that with my friend and colleague Izzy. And it will be a 90-minute event, so we'll get to celebrate the full moon all together. And then after that, on July 12th, I will be at Tacoma Pride, which is from 12 to 6 p.m. in Wright Park in Tacoma, and I'll be having all my supplies for the tarot card crafting that I love to do. So if you wanted to, if you're local to me, stop on by during Tacoma Pride to come make a card or just say hi. I will have some Everyday Tarot podcast stickers for folks as a giveaway for my table. So you can come by and get a sticker to help promote the podcast. And you can say hi and, of course, make a card as well. So we'll be just doing some crafting during that time, which is very fun. And if you are not local to me, of course, you can go ahead and if you want to know that method and everything like that, you can purchase the full hour-long recording I did before for the virtual event, where you'll get examples of the cards I've created, journaling questions, and a PDF to walk you all through it. So the link to purchase that as well is in the show notes if you're not local to me and want to get a taste for starting to make some of your own cards, which is super fun. All right, and if you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you, my lovely listeners of the podcast, at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and more. All right, I think that's about it for today. Like I said, you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleSaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull on each episode. So we are in season 10 here. This is the last episode of season 10, where I've been talking all about tarot and witchcraft. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can check those out. In season 1, I talked tarot basics. In seasons 2 and 3, I went through all the major arcana cards and an overview of the 4 suits. In season 4, I talked tarot and pop culture. Season 5, I went through 13 common tarot spreads. In season 6, 7, 8, and 9, I went through all the suit of wands, pentacles, swords, and cups. So, as you may have gathered, I have talked about every single card in the traditional 78 card tarot deck. So if you're ever looking for a particular episode and you don't want to scroll all the way through your podcast feed or try to find it that way, you can go to my website, CamilleSaunders.com/everydaytarot, and use the search bar at the top to search for the name of the episode, which is just whatever the card is called. Obviously, for some of the other seasons where I talked about pop culture or tarot spreads, you'll just you'll have to find those a little bit more, or you can search tarot in pop culture, and those will come up. But for any of the ones where you're looking for a particular card, you should just be able to search in the bar at the top to find that episode. All right. Okay. So like I said, we are in season 10 here. So our last episode today, where I've been talking all about tarot and witchcraft. And today I'm talking about tarot for transformation. So we're getting just sort of into like a broad topic today. But yeah, I wanted to share a bit of my own experience. I wanted to share a bit from the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dore, where she shares some of her experience in utilizing tarot for transformation. And then I'm going to be teasing, my upcoming live course that we're going to do, or workshops where we're going to be working through, like I said, Dreya Blume's book, Tarot for Transformation, using the major arcana to discover your best self and create a life worth living. Which again, I'm super excited about. So yeah, I guess for my own sort of journey for tarot and transformation, I'll start with what Jessica Dore shares. So this is Jessica Dore's book, Tarot for Change, using the cards for self-care, acceptance, and growth. I got this book because it is basically like a psychologist or therapist going through each of the tarot cards and sort of giving their sort of psychological interpretation of the cards, which I thought was super cool. It was one of the first couple of tarot books that I got. I don't even totally know how I found out about this person, but perhaps from my therapist who tarot retreat last year. I know we had kind of like a book list of different books that are good resources. And I have another one of those, which is the 21 Ways to Read a Tarot Card by Mary Greer. That one I haven't explored as much, but I used this one as a reference as I went through all the different cards throughout the tarot, because I do find it very fun. But I really liked this sort of experience that Jessica Dore shared in the beginning of the book. She talks about that she sort of has this analogy to learning tarot and the ways that tarot can transform your life, because she's talking about that she was 24 at the time. She was wanting to overcome some of her self-destructive behaviors, wanting to take better care of herself, be in her body, build strength and flexibility. And so she sought out yoga and a yoga practice. And when she was doing so, she said she asked her teacher for all these, what books should I read? And he told me, and she says, I'm paraphrasing, that yoga was something to be experienced rather than intellectualized about. And so she talks about that what her teacher had been taught by his teacher was that yoga was 99% practice and 1% theory. And she shares that, she said, I took the point, showed up to practice day after day, and over time I started to understand, not at an intellectual level, but a felt and energetic one, what this practice of yoga, a word having to do with union, was about. And then she kind of goes on to say that that this also applies to practicing tarot, that, you can work with a set of cards like a yoga practice, and it can have this profound kind of spiritual effect. But that, and I thought this was a very interesting analogy, because I think when I sought out tarot, if you haven't listened to my first deck story, which is one of my early episodes of the podcast in the first season, I can get you the episode number right now. It's the second episode. So the first episode of my podcast is an intro, and then the second one is my first deck story. So I talked about, I believe, how I found my first deck, which is that I was living in Seattle at the time, and I lived and worked downtown. So I'd walk to work every day, and for multiple days, for multiple weeks, when I walked to work, I was always intrigued by this clothing boutique place where they sold like handmade clothing, and then they had like some other things like jewelry or just other, I think, locally handmade goods. And there was this one tarot deck, so there weren't any other ones that were there, and I just felt very called to go in this store. I think I went in there and I sort of like looked at the clothes, and they were all very cool, but it was like very expensive for me at the time. The clothing. So I remember looking around. I'm pretty sure I bought like some earrings for someone I know for like a gift, like a birthday or something, like a holiday, something. So I just kind of kept like going in there and feeling like something is drawing me here. I'm not totally sure what it is. And yeah, I found this tarot deck that I eventually bought, and it is the Sacerdote Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington, who I've since learned is like a local artist. So that's probably why it was in the shop. And I really love the deck. It's beautiful. It's sort of like a Pacific Northwest Japanese style art in the deck as well. And it is based off of the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of traditional depictions, but is a bit more modern as well. So that's kind of my first deck. And so I pick up this deck, you know, I like don't even really remember when I bought it. I just know sort of like that I was living in Seattle at the time. I would walk to work, so I kind of know like around what year or time that was when I would walk that particular way to work, which I think is around like 2017, 2018. Was when I found that first deck. And again, I got the deck, and I don't even really like remember like my first experiences with it. Again, like I don't know really what I knew about tarot beforehand. I didn't feel like I really knew anyone that did tarot. I'd never had a tarot reading specifically, although now that I think about it, my Puerto Rican aunt, her mom, so I studied abroad in Ecuador when I was 16, and when I came back from Ecuador, I flew into Florida because that's where a lot of like South American flights fly into, and I had a lot of family, extended family that lived in Florida, and so we went to visit my aunt who was Puerto Rican, and her mother in Florida at the time, and her mother only spoke Spanish, and I'm pretty sure her mom did a tarot reading for me. Actually, now that I think about it, she did some sort of like spiritual like divination, like she might have like read my palm too, or, and again, I'm like, I don't know if I wrote down what she said. I could go back and look in like my journal maybe from that time, from when I got back to the US, but I remember being very cool and like spiritual at the time, and she did it all in Spanish, so usually my aunt would have to translate for folks, but because I'd spent a year living and speaking Spanish, I felt, you know, I probably got like 90% of what she was talking about. And so that was a very cool experience. So I'm like, yeah, maybe that was actually my first sort of like introduction to tarot. But anyway, I got that deck, and I just remember doing a lot of like, okay, now what? Like I could pull cards from the deck. I could read the deck guidebook, which had short descriptions, had a reversal, like it has upright words and a reversal description, I'm pretty sure. And then other than that, I was sort of like, I don't like, now what? So I remember like using some apps. I think I used the Golden Thread Tarot app because I would pull cards digitally because I knew I always had my phone on me, and I didn't like carry my deck with me all the time. Now I like carry a deck with me a lot of times, especially when I travel, not always in my purse like day to day, but when I'm gonna like be leaving my home and not be there with my tarot cards every day. So I remember using an app to kind of learn some of the cards, and I remember buying books about like how to memorize all the tarot cards, or I definitely remember like finding the Biddy Tarot, who's like a really big, like has a bunch of courses, like teaches you how to like learn tarot, read tarot, and then like make reading tarot into a business. So I remember like finding some of those resources online, and I definitely had the like kitchen table tarot book, which I think I've referenced before. I don't have it because I like would pick it up and I'd read like a page or two and I'd be like, I can't, like I'm not interested in like memorizing. So I guess with all of this to say, in doing this podcast and in reading for other people, even though right now I've pretty much only read for friends and family, like I've never been paid to read, I just have sort of started bringing my tarot cards around, and people that follow me on Instagram know that I pull tarot cards for myself, and I started getting people to ask me to read for them. And basically through reading for other people and then in doing the podcast, I feel like that has really transformed my relationship with the tarot. I've started to really sort of memorize a bit more of the cards, or kind of have an I think mostly to kind of like trust my intuition and my gut when it comes to the symbols or what I see from the card or the vibe I get before I go look in the tarot deck guidebook or anything like that. I still like to. I've sort of always been a person that likes to like check my notes or have the music there, even if I haven't memorized when I did piano or choir or things like that. Like it feels comforting to me to like have the resource if I need it to sort of check and balance myself. But I've gotten a lot better and feeling, I guess, more intuitive about reading the cards. And I think my, again, personal way of reading the cards is a lot more intuition based. And I think like once I sort of figured that out for myself, and also, my friend Katie, who's in the Dirty Hoe Coven, which is like the online coven I'm in. You can find us on Instagram. We're a bunch of gardeners. They, at one of our in-person retreats, did like a tarot workshop where we all sort of sat and looked at a tarot card and talked about the symbols we saw on it and the art and the imagery and sort of tried to glean what we understood. And that, again, is sort of that like intuitive version of tarot where you're looking at the card, you're trying to take in the vibes it gives you, what you see on the card, and like internalize that before you go and like check or look it up online or use the tarot deck guidebook. All of those things really helped me to sort of move into a more intuitive way of reading tarot. And now I would say my whole, right, this season is about witchcraft. My whole like witchcraft vibe, magical vibe is very intuitive. Like I don't necessarily really like Googling a ritual and like doing it. Like sometimes I like a framework, but it kind of feels like cooking to me where it's like, I want some inspiration. So maybe I'll again, like search for, I want a fire ritual or like I want a healing ritual or something like that. I did some of those this season. That's why those are coming to mind. And then I kind of like loosely go off of that using what I have. I don't like to have to go to the store to like buy things if I want to do a ritual like today. And that's also how I do my cooking life is like, I'm going to use what I have. We're going to adapt. And that has sort of been, I would say, like my way of practicing witchcraft is very intuitive. And doing tarot has also really helped me like hone my intuitive practice in a lot of ways to actually trust myself and my gut, to trust that the cards are going to kind of give me the information I need or reflect back to me what it is I need to hear. I think of the tarot as like a mirror sometimes, as like, again, they're sort of reflecting back like what I need to hear or what I'm feeling already, and kind of almost like putting it into words. Obviously tarot is really about like putting it into visuals, but the tarot deck guidebooks can be helpful with kind of the wordy aspect of it. And I'm getting very wordy right now. So we've talked about the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dore. I've talked a bit about my own kind of transformation with tarot or intuitive practice. So I did want to give a little like teaser of what I'm hoping for this like 12-week course that I'm creating, where we're going to talk all about tarot for transformation and really work through this book. So I have this tome, I would say it's like almost 500 pages, called Tarot for Transformation, Using the Major Arcana to Discover Your Best Self and Create a Life Worth Living. And it was written by Andy Matzner, who now goes by Dreya Blume. They have many a book online. They do a lot of self-publishing. You can get most of their stuff on Instagram. I mean, not Instagram, Amazon. I will link to their website, so you can find all that info. They do a lot of journaling stuff. Like I said, I attended a retreat that they did called Therapists Who Tarot. So it was a bunch of therapists who are interested in tarot or already do tarot, and we learned how to apply it in clinical practice, so with clients. And then we also learned how to do this kind of like collaging tarot card creation that I've been like mildly obsessed with since then. And that's like what I did in my virtual tarot card creation events. And when I do my meetups in person, I bring all the like collaging materials and art, and we do a lot of crafting together. So I've been very inspired by that retreat and by Dreya Blume's style. But yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about, you know, what is tarot for transformation. So they talk about that, right? This book, which again we're going to kind of be working through, has all like the major arcana cards in it, and they also are trained like as a mental health counselor, so working in that field, as am I, and that they talk about that there are these like 3 things that are sort of like helpful in when we want to become a better version of ourselves, or sort of live this authentic life that we really want to do and we're not quite sure how to do it. So they talk about the first one is to discover who it is you really are underneath all the familial and social conditioning you've been exposed to all your life. The second is to determine what it is you truly want out of life. And the third are sort of this like mastering an array of life skills that we should all have learned in school or such, and like some of those are like developing healthy relationships with food and eating, recognizing and engaging with difficult emotions, dealing with stress in a healthy way, overcoming addictions, set and achieving meaningful goals, managing time effectively, avoiding toxic relationships, creating and maintaining boundaries, and dealing with negative self-talk. So right, all of these things that are really big and important that kind of like help us day to day. And so this book that they created is focused on the major arcana cards and sort of tailor, you know, using those cards and these 3 aspects to sort of pull out the self-discovery and personal growth that they've talked about. Obviously there's a lot more cards in a tarot deck, right? There's like the other 56 cards that include the minor arcana, but they talk about that they utilize the major arcana cards because it really is this like, each card is an archetype that embodies a specific elemental energy, and these energies form the collective unconscious, the ancestral memory bank that serves as a foundation for humanity's myths and legends. So the idea is that there's this deep part of our unconscious mind that's common to all of humanity, right? Like it is in this like collective way and is inherited from generation to generation. And that is why like there can be these similarities and symbolism and narratives across many cultures and time periods. So Carl Jung believed that the collective unconscious contained all the wisdom and experiences that we share as humans, and archetypes which reside in our unconscious are universal patterns and images. So they symbolize basic human personalities, motivations, values, and behaviors, and archetypes form a model of what it means to be human. And so the major arcana and utilizing these is valuable because it provides this map of like the broad and deep part of the human mind as well as the soul. And it just really helps us to kind of integrate with our authentic selves, right? And also sort of with this idea of the collective, which is like all of us have like this shared humanity with each other. And so they created this book. Their vision for the book was to be a roadmap and a workbook for the soul, with each of the majors as mile markers from the Fool through to the world. And so that is really why I'm so interested in using this book as a way to sort of to work through parts of this book as a collective experience, to do it as a group. Obviously, I could do this all on my own, and I probably will at some point. I also think that books that have a lot of journaling prompts and are about, right, archetypes and symbolism, it really means that you can utilize them at any point in your life and do them again, because you'll almost always get something different out of it, which is what I believe is also relevant about the tarot, is that, right, like it has 78 cards traditionally. It has this format. You have the major arcana where you have this journey from the Fool to the world, and then you have the minor arcana, more about the day-to-day experiences, from the Ace to the 10, and then Page, Knight, Queen, King for each suit. But part of why we can use the same cards with different prompts and with different questions and at different times in our life and with different people, and they will show up with different things, is because there is this like underlying collective energy, and also that like our experiences, our day-to-day, where we're at in our life, where we live, all of these things will impact how we view the card. So I might view the card differently than someone else, even if we're sitting in the same room looking at the card. I might refer to a certain symbol, and that might mean something very particular to me versus someone else. And I think like there's this both and where we both have, right, that we can both tap into this like unconscious, subconscious symbolism that we all as humans go through, and it doesn't mean that the symbols are going to mean the same things to each of us at different moments. I hope that is making sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I guess that's part of why I also think that it's so fun utilizing the tarot, because again, I can bring the same cards with me all the time. I have 5 tarot decks, and I use them interchangeably. I use multiple on most episodes of my podcast, and they are so, to me, transferable skills or information. They are a tool in my mind to sort of, again, talk to, have a conversation with, reflect on, to mirror our internal world in this visual, outward, externalized way. And it can kind of, in the same way that I experience journaling, where I'm writing things down and then I'm later looking at it and I'm like, oh, I didn't know I felt that way. I feel similarly about that is like the same benefit of utilizing tarot cards, is that sometimes seeing it visualized or seeing the story play out with multiple cards in a row, or seeing the same card on a different day, like can impact us in different ways and have us take different information from the card, or sort of reflect back a different idea in a way that helps us decide what we want to do or feel sure in what we're going to do, to check in with our intuition. I think, again, the way I utilize the tarot is a very intuitive way of using the tarot, which again just means it has wide-ranging definitions and things it could mean from day to day, and we're tapping into what it means to us right now, versus the idea that every tarot card has one meaning or one translation or one way of embodying or understanding the card, and that is like the law. And there are people that like view the tarot that way. I would say, yeah, I think different decks give different vibes, even on the same cards, or they help you understand a different version of that interpretation, I would say, or it helps you better understand the card by seeing it in a different way. And again, I feel like that is what's so helpful about what I'm hoping for working on this sort of live course of doing tarot for transformation together in like a group collective, and getting to spend time together to think about the archetypes of the card, to see, you know, what it is we want to transform in our lives through the tarot, and to kind of utilize collective energy to propel us forward as well. Like I said, you could buy this book, you could do it on your own. I will probably do parts of it on my own in the future, or, you know, even maybe before I start. But what I'm really hoping for is sort of, again, this collective energy of doing things together, having a bit of accountability, and also like being able to support each other through doing this in a group. Because again, when we have books that are sort of like things you have to work through, like this is essentially a workbook. It's learning different types of skills, doing lots of journaling, reflecting, like it's gonna take a lot of like mental and emotional energy to do it. And sometimes when we do that on our own, it is just too hard. There's too many barriers, or it's too hard to integrate in our day-to-day lives, or we need a little support, some accountability, or someone to talk to when we come up against like a barrier or a block or a resistance around something. And again, like, I'm a therapist, like therapy can be a great way, right, to do that. But I also think like that's not always accessible to everyone, or even when it is, usually at most therapy is like 1 hour a week. And we have so many more hours in our lives, week to week, that are spent right in our own heads, not with someone else there in that way to kind of help us pull things apart, to make understanding or meaning of what we're thinking and going through. So my hope is that, yeah, with this, working through this book together, and doing this course, that I will get to have some accountability, right? This will help me do it, that I will get to sort of use some of my knowledge of the tarot thus far, or at least experience from doing this podcast and basically reading tarot every day, often multiple times a day if I'm recording multiple podcast episodes. And thinking about how to share it in a collective way, even when maybe I'm pulling the cards for myself. So I did want to find in here the beginning. So this is all just from the beginning section. But I was going to pull 3 cards that were having to do with 3 journal questions that talk about, so they're journal questions in the book to address like as you prepare to start your journey into delving into this book for the major arcana. So I'm going to pull out 3 of those questions, and we're going to pull 3 cards today and see, yeah, what comes up, and yeah, what it means for us, for me, or as the collective. So the first question is, what excites you about what lays ahead? So I'm going to go ahead and grab a deck. All right, and this is going to be from the Desert Illuminations deck by Lindsay D. Williams. I'm going to give a quick shuffle here. All right. Okay, so first question, like I said, is what excites you about what lays ahead. The second one is going to be about what concerns we have. And the third, let's say, how does it feel to be in uncharted territory? Okay. All right, so I'm going to grab I'm going to look at the cards. So the first one I pulled for what excites you is the Five of Daggers reversed, or the Five of Swords reversed. I got 2 5s and a 6 across, so I guess I'm feeling challenged or conflicted. So let's look up the Five of Daggers reversed. So the Five of Daggers upright. It depicts a fierce woman resides in the middle of the desert under a gloomy sky. Her dagger-throwing target is set up against a large saguaro cactus in the distance. She's back at the training process after losing many battles and even injuring herself in the process. At some point in our lives, we have all lost a battle that we have been fighting. Defeat can be an awful feeling that can leave you feeling resentful. Competition is normal and healthy in the right situations when it is balanced, but when it becomes overly competitive, it can leave you isolated, alone, and stuck in a toxic cycle. On a positive note, the Five of Daggers can also indicate that you are ready to move on from conflict, and you've already turned your situation around into something more positive. In apology, there is grace. In grace, there is growth and spiritual transformation. So I think, this is reversed, but we'll say that I think the excitement around here, right, is for that growth and spiritual transformation. I definitely feel that. I love getting to think about and use the tarot daily, like I said, while I'm in my podcast, and I'm excited to kind of have this new way of working with the tarot. I think also there was like something in here about like competitiveness that I do think doing this as a group is like a fun way to, like I said, sort of keep me accountable, but also to sort of like tamp down on the idea that like things have to be competitive, right? Is that we're going to be doing this together, we're going to be supporting each other, and even if we're going on, right, these different journeys, or with what the cards are calling us to do, or transforming our lives in different ways, right, we sort of are going to have these weekly calls as a way to kind of touch base with each other, to check back in, to support each other, and to kind of get excited and to not fall into this like competitive place of like, oh, I'm going to do it better than you, or I'm going to transform my life more, right? We're going to be in this place of like, we're all going to be welcoming in this transformation, and accepting also that like help from each other as well. Okay. So the second question and card was about what concerns do I have? And I pulled the Five of Jugs in reverse. So the jugs are equal to cups in this deck. So upright, this shows a masked bandit in a long black cape stands under the night sky in the middle of a painted desert. He's surrounded by a bunch of whiskey jugs, tipped over and spilling their contents onto the sand. This is an ominous scene that seems surreal and mysterious. The Five of Jugs is symbolic of lost opportunities and disappointments. In life, sometimes plans fall through or situations don't turn out exactly as you expect. Instead of dwelling on these lost moments, consider how you could learn from these experiences. You may run the risk of getting stuck in the past. Remember to stay present and focused from moment to moment. One day at a time, it is very easy to get anxious or stressed out from ruminating on what happened. Practice forgiveness and patience with yourself. It is the key to getting unstuck. So I think reversed, this is about, right, maybe in the past I got stuck, or it was easy to get caught up in maybe things not working out how I wanted, or situations like plans falling through. And I guess maybe that is also part of maybe what I'm concerned about, is like, oh, I want to get multiple people into this group. I hope people are able to attend live so we can all, have the energy of each other and be supportive of each other. And it sounds like, right, I need to remember to be staying in the present, focused on moment to moment, right, focused on who is showing up on calls and who is available, who wants to take this journey with me, and not worrying so much about, right, about what could happen, or if I don't get a certain number of people or that kind of thing, right? This card's saying practice forgiveness and patience with myself, and that is the key to getting unstuck. Okay, and then my last card I pulled was the Six of Jugs. The eight, I had to count them. The Eight of Jugs upright, and this is about How does it feel to be in uncharted territory? The Eight of Jugs depicts a horse-drawn carriage and is galloping away in the distance across a mountainous desertscape. Many mystic whiskey bottles are left behind as the full moon looms above. A prismatic cloud lights the way in the sky. Have you ever felt the need to escape your problems by running away instead of facing them? In order to leave the past behind and truly move forward, you must own up to your disappointments to release the emotional baggage. Running away does not always solve the issue at hand. How can you reset your mind so you can stop avoiding life's challenges? Remember that even though situations can be uncomfortable to deal with, facing them will ultimately make you stronger and more resilient. So I think, right, that's a really good message for this being in uncharted territory, right? Where maybe, again, in the past, I would have run away from that or would be scared to sort of like face what was going to come up in this process, right? Again, because this is like a soulful process, transforming our lives through tarot, discovering what happens when we dedicate ourselves to a practice of doing something for 12 weeks, right? That's 3 months if we meet weekly. That can be a long time in our lives. And so thinking about, right, how can I stop avoiding life's challenges? How can we face them? And that even when there's discomfort, right, facing them makes us stronger and more resilient. And again, especially as we do this in a group, we're going to be able to support each other in that way. All right, well, I think that bodes well for tarot and transformation coming up soon. I'm going to pull one more card from a different deck to see what the cards have to say about this. You know, if there's anything else the cards need to say to us before we conclude the episode today. Let's pull from the Therapist Who Tarot deck, which is prompts by Dreya Blume, who wrote Tarot for Transformation, and then images by Rebecca Bloom, who did the wonderful artwork for this deck. Okay. What do the cards have to say? I pulled the Knight of Wands, which it says is about the journey. And the journal prompt questions on the back are, what don't you see? Is there something you need to quit? And what is weighing you down? What don't you see? Is there something you need to quit? And what is weighing you down? And when we look at the image to practice our intuitive tarot, when we look at the image, it has like a person in like a rowboat, and they have the wand as like a paddle that they're putting in the water, and they're going on a journey, right? And I think that right, that is what this Tarot for Transformation is about, right? It's about embarking on the journey. It's about, what do you not see, right, under the water? What might capsize you on the journey? What might, right, the waves or the critters that are under the water that might impact our journey, or what we, you know, how we view on the boat? What is something we need to quit, right? Is there some baggage, right? What is weighing us down? Is there something that's going to make it harder for us to paddle on our journey, right? Is that doubt? Is that fear of something, again, happening or going wrong? I sort of have some things that are coming to mind with this, so maybe you do too. And is there something you need to quit? Again, it can be hard to embark on a whole new journey if you have things lingering in the past, or things that you still kind of have holding on. Like, is there something you need to set a boundary with or say no to in order to make time to commit to using Tarot for Transformation? And again, like, I'm leading this course, I'm very excited about it, but you can do this on your own, right? You can use the Tarot for Transformation. You don't even need the book. You can, right, pull cards every day. You can work through the tarot on your own. You can find spreads online. You can listen to old episodes I have, and you can work through Tarot for Transformation all on your own if you would like. Right. But we also have to think about what is kind of going to be hindering us in that process, right? Again, like I said, is there something we need to quit? Is there a boundary we need to set? Is there something that's taking our energy that means we don't have, you know, time for new things? And what is it that we're not seeing, right? Which again is very hard to figure out. And sometimes we only figure out when we are able to look back on it from the future. But Is there anything else that, right, is going to make this hard, or is going to, right, again, be under the water in the boat as we make our journey across this body of water that's going to impact our journey? And if so, right, what are we going to do about it? What is it that we're not maybe accounting for in that way? All right, well, if you'd like to join me on the journey of using the tarot for transformation, the link will be in the show notes to indicate your interest in receiving more information. We'll be working together for 12 weeks of calls and journaling to discover what happens when we want to transform our lives through the tarot. And like I said, we'll be starting that probably at the end of August, so you have a little bit of time to think about it. Or, you know, if you're already ready, like get on that list for more information, and I'll be starting to send things out in the next couple of weeks. So links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. And you can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, I'll see you later. Bye-bye.